One of the first meetings any person who's taking responsibility of this country had to have, then it's with you, the power producers, because we know what role power plays in keeping the economy going, especially in a time when the economy is in crisis. You must have had your issues with the previous government, and I think that I know many of them, but it helps to hear it from, I don't mean your horses, but from the horse's own mouth.
Mubim aside the mobile tentanfidi so na me come say ensema esisi ene de besom yahwefo aha good news tv gi so mgo so unsubscribe to our channel na munyam comment comment section boss na de na ekọ ye de John Mahama asiso as a Ghana president awie na wahya ase hyehyɛ kon be fa so de asom oman Ghana na yahwe se oman no ebekọ ebefa ntuma pa ayede de afira na no na light edundum off as say asha ase no Mahama interview na say meeting our friend what chirem kwan obefa so a obetu saa dum so no ase ni nyina na o say akofo ado betena so mistake bebe sika bi okoje $2.5 million bia okoje na wo so de beye ECG egbo do ECG mu ana say light nsem ni ma bibia to di ma sabi obi a yusu kani aye adwuma bia ho beto no wanye ni nyina ewum se ne pensioner dum wo de bet of so ni nyina na no omunim se akoso mudam no kwa betimi aserve Ghana am yenya kani asa de epe na antimi amasa kuruno aye kese companies akese abam mfidi akese abam ti na se omoje light ni bi ana nyina mahode ni bi efiri baabi edebe so na ono ade obiri kan atena se adwen ho atusu pa aye hu ye eye kani adundum because Ghana ha kania no bia de na dwuma se de be ya ne nsa one na bisuafo nsa be ko ma no na odi blame ni kase koma MPP aban no ne akofo ado ni mu mpanyimfo a no mu di MPP achi na so aba ne de kwan bia kianike obefa so atu dum so no ase no obetu afuom eno na mpanyimfo ntoto questions bebre ma no ama oyi ni nyina no eka se waba no de enema esese odigu akwan ma bibia to din no odi begu akwan ama bibia to din eye Mahama nsem a odi kan aka no se ekosa ade a na che se oman Ghana dum so no de ye betwam ye beye ni tinton time bibia ni wa ebetimi asi ewo kania dum ebia na for to be na aba na eno kura no se announcement babam region bia na bronu bia ate so no se bedum kania obema ya announcement se bibi sei na atochima ye pese edum be 1 hour anase 2 hours bi ne de yensinsie se de be ya be san afa no ntuma pa afira Mahama nsensem okan wasansi ECG ho no obebo ho yie pa hwe de ekoso ho na wasiesie no ebrebe yenkoti Mahama nsem a okan ni bi emra.
Any person who's taking responsibility of this country had to have, then it's with you, the power producers, because we know what role power plays in keeping the economy going, especially in a time when the economy is in crisis. You must have had your issues with the previous government, and I think that I know many of them, but it helps to hear it from, I don't mean your horses, but from the horse's own mouth. And to see how we can work together to try and improve the situation so that we can have a good collaboration. We all remember the time of the power crisis, popularly called doomsday by Ghanaians. It was important that we expand the space for independent power producers because government on its own could not always leverage the capital to put in the generation that was required. And that's how come many of you signed PPAs and set up the thermal plants that we have. I remember that we had two issues to resolve in terms of being able to solve the power crisis. The first was to increase generation because over the years we had thought that Akosombo was the all-in-all and that it will continue to provide Ghana power forever. But the time had come for us to complement hydro with thermal. And in the beginning was VRE that was responsible for that. But mobilizing capital early enough and being able to operationalize thermal plants was becoming a challenge for government and its state-owned power production companies. And so IPPs started to come in. So Nana Addo-ECG came in, Sem Power and all of you came in. And you've played a very critical role in making sure that our economy gets the power it needs to be able to continue to make progress. But like I said, there were twin problems. One was the generational, and that made us accelerate the signing of PPAs with independent power producers, but also bringing in emergency power. If you remember, Ameri was one of those that was brought in, and then the car power ship also came in. But that was just to solve the generation. The more important and critical issue was the debt and paying down the debt that accumulated in the sector. And so we have the situation we have. And like I said, while we take responsibility for solving challenges, because that's what we're elected to do, we must let the Ghanaian people to know what the situation is. You need to let people know the challenge before you go ahead and solve it. And so now we have an energy sector that is burdened with debt, highly inefficient. Just giving a ballpark figure, the audited debt in the power sector is estimated at about $2.5 billion. And if you take $2.5 billion and imagine that we're in an IMF program bailout for $3 billion, if you're trying to achieve macroeconomic stability with a bailout of $3 billion, and you have a power sector debt of $2.5 billion that you have not yet come up with any strategy for dealing with, then you can be sure that it can wreck any fiscal consolidation that you achieve under the IMF program. And so as quickly as possible, the IMF and World Bank were very generous to send missions down that have been speaking with us to discuss how we deal not only with the power sector debt, but with all other challenges that we face. But I thought that it was important for me to meet you as president and tell you that I care about your concerns and what you're going through, and to say that we're going to work together with you to see how we can resolve the issues in the power sector. The first thing is for us to deal with the issue of the value chain, the whole power value chain. And that means that we must start from the downstream all the way upstream. There are issues to do with availability of gas, and so that's upstream, how we get the companies in that space to increase exploration and bring on more gas so that we eliminate the use of fossil fuels and achieve our dream of gas to power 100%, which will bring down the cost of generation. That's the first thing. And the next is to see how we can bring more efficiency in terms of your sector and the production of power so that we can pass on any benefits to the Ghanaian people. But obviously, the bull in a china shop is Electricity Company of Ghana, the sick man of the power sector. I mean, you can't run an electricity utility and make 40% commercial and technical losses and continue to think that you have a viable business. And so something must give in that sector. And that's why I've said that we are looking at introducing private sector participation. If you remember, under the Millennium Challenge Compact, we had agreed that in the last portion of the distribution, billing, and metering, we're going to introduce private sector participation. And so I remember I signed the contract eventually, the compact, and we started the whole process with improving the national grid with the bulk supply points, the BSPs and all that. But there was also a component for private sector participation in billing and metering. And so the new government took over, and that's when the whole PDS saga happened. Even as irregular as PDS was and as inefficient as it was, I mean, when PDS came, you could see an increase in the revenue that was being collected. And so if we do it more transparently, more fairly, more competitively, I'm sure that we'll get an efficient partner to join us in terms of billing and metering so that we can eliminate the huge losses that ECG is making. And so we're willing to take the bull by the horns and reform that sector of it, and also reform the governance in ECG so that it's running more efficiently than it does currently. So these are all things that we're looking at, but I thought that it was important to call you and listen to you. Like I said, you're not horses, but I want to hear from your own mouths, you know, what you've gone through, and to open a new page on how we intend to do things. In the interim, one of the first things we want to do is to improve the governance in ECG. We don't need to wait for the private sector participation. We can start to look at their procurement systems, and I mean, why would you procure items that you don't need till 5 years or 6 years after? And so much of the revenue that is collected must go to pay for power that is generated. And so how to make the cash waterfall mechanism more effective so that at least you people are clawing back part of your cost while we look at the outstanding debt. These are issues that we want to look at, but we're going to do that in concert with you. I can assure you we're turning a new chapter. As I said in my inaugural address, I said Ghana is open for business again. You guys brought your investment in here, and you expected that investment will pay off. And so we need to be faithful partners in order that you're able to run your businesses properly and you're able to account to your shareholders, because your shareholders will be wondering, I mean, what kind of investment in this that we've done, and we're producing the power and yet we're not being remunerated for it. So those are the first preliminary
Mahama nsɛm a ɔkan ne bi ɛfa ECG ɛne anyinam ahoɔden mekyerɛ sɛ nkani a yisu die adwuma no ɔkafa ho bi no sɛ dumso no ahyɛ aseɛ yɛnim sɛ akɔfoɔ ado te so no ɔkɔsrɛ anaasɛ ɔkɔtua sika bi ma Nigeriafoɔ a na wɔgye nkani no bi firi hɔ na ɔkɔ terminate na abom ya terminate contract no enti NDC abade a Mahama so sɛ ɔwɔ kwan ɔde nkani a bɛfa so a ɛbɛgyina dumso no nyinaa ɛbɛtwam mekae sɛ ha Good News TV gye akyi so monkɔ so subscribe to our channel na munya comment section box nyeba anu yie reply bi obi an beso na hwefo nyina makra mu nyina enema bi a ebekɔ so anase nsɛm bi ebesi so social media tentam fidie no so yɛde ba beso ya hwefo nyina